In part 1 of The Goddess Speaks, we talked about my otherworldly visit in the mid-90s from what I took to be a goddess and the words she left me with, Ur-Be-He. We also talked about the shape I received during my meditation in the Goddess Crop Circle in 1997, which appeared in another crop circle a few days later. Now, after the visit and then the crop circle synchronicity, I knew it was absolutely critical to decipher the message that had been spoken in a language I couldn't even identify. So where to begin? The first breakthrough came in the early 2000s when I was online and found mention of the prehistoric Ubaid culture. Now, Ubaid wasn't an exact match, but it was pretty close to Ur-Be-He. Anyway, it was the closest I'd found. I learned that the Ubaid lived in the area we now call Iraq from about 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, until their culture disappeared around 4000 BC. And they left us these compelling artifacts. If you sense echoes of Eden, you're not imagining things. The mysterious Sumerians then arrived and commenced building a magnificent city at the same location as one of the most ancient Ubaid communities, although the remains of the Ubaid there had been sealed under 10 feet of silt from a massive ancient flood. Oh, and did I mention this great city was called Ur? Tricky, right? Through the coincidence that Ubaid sounds a little like Ur-Be-He, I'm led right to the first syllable of what the goddess had said. The Sumerians built many great temples to their ancestors, who are recorded as having come to Earth from another planet. One of these goddesses, Inanna, is closely connected to Nanna, the moon god to whom the main temple of Ur was dedicated. I didn't know if it was Inanna who'd visited me, but all things considered, I had a feeling she had something to do with it. At least I was one step closer to understanding Ur-Be-He with a place name that fit the ambiance of the visit that brought me those very syllables. And I was more determined than ever to translate Be-He. Now that I had a good clue to the language she may have been speaking, I was able to find ancient Near East lexicons online. I scoured each and every one, my eyes specifically scanning all the words beginning with B, but still no luck. And then I found it, Be-He, and its definition fit perfectly with Ur. The goddess was talking about the brilliant, radiant, shining city of Ur. Now, just what are the odds of finding a translation for the words of an interdimensional goddess anyway? What if I hadn't been paying attention? Anyway, back to the message. Brilliant Ur. So Ur was important, that I knew, but I wasn't going there for a visit, not anytime soon anyway, not with all the unrest in the Middle East. So now what? Fast forward a few years to the summer of 2015. 2 crop circles caught my eye, this one at Newton Barrow and this other one at West Amesbury. But I wasn't over the moon about either. Then one day I open Crop Circle Connector and I see this one at Clearberry Ring. Now this was the real deal. This was the mind-blowing geometry that the other 2 had only been aiming for. The shape was loud and clear, yet just like when the goddess spoke, I couldn't quite place it. But I was at work at the time, and I wouldn't be able to look into it further until later in the day. Now that evening, I was dropping off some library books at closing time. I didn't have time to browse, and I was about to walk out empty-handed when a book caught my eye staring out from the shelf, Beneath the 7 Seas. The title reminded me of the 7 stars, the Pleiades, that we talked about in episode 2, and it appeared to be about ancient shipwrecks, so why not? I quickly checked it out and headed home. When I sat down to relax, I opened the book, and this is what I saw. Wow. Yeah, the answer to the day's big question about the shape at Clearberry Ring just landed in my lap. It's a gold Canaanite pectoral from the world's oldest known shipwreck. The ship went down 3,300 years ago in the waters off of Uluburun, Turkey. And then finally, as all of this was sinking in, I recalled that the double arc circle echoes the shape I got inside the goddess formation 2 decades prior. The correspondences couldn't be more pointed, and I could not have been more astonished. So now, more than a set of synchronicities, these were almost a set of instructions from the other intelligence, or G in brackets. But where was it all leading? Once again, answers only brought more questions. In late 2016, I started talking with the author and mystic, Timothy Wiley. Like myself, Timothy was a synchronicity magnet, and in the 5 months I was blessed to know him, my dialogue with the other intelligence moved forward at light speed. Too many synchronicities to count. For today, we'll focus only on those synchros, as Timothy called them, that directly pertain to this story, Goddess Speaks. I'd picked up Timothy's book Dolphins, ETs, and Angels more than 20 years before, and at some point during our conversation I decided to take a look at his other books. None were available at my local library, so I went to the online preview and I selected Wisdom of the Watchers. And what do you suppose I found there? None other than the 7 Seas. The book opens at the 7 Seas Bar in New Orleans. Here we go again. I was pretty charged up when I asked Timothy about the 7 Seas, expecting some miraculous answer. But no, it was just the name of the place, he told me. The words 7 Seas had no special significance to him. Well, far from being over, it turned out that the floodgates to the 7 Seas had just been reopened, and wide. Suddenly, the 7 Seas were everywhere, and I mean they came in fast and heavy. Then on Sunday afternoon, the 19th of March, 2017, I was doing the LA Times crossword puzzle when I came to the clue, large septet. Any ideas? You guessed it, the 7 Seas. I was trying to keep track of all these synchronicities, so I took my phone and I sent myself a note. The next day, I see an email from Timothy waiting in my inbox, and his note is full of fascinating connections as usual. And then at the very end of the note, he writes, "I suspect the 7 Seas synchronicity is yours to enjoy. No metasynchro at my end." And that's when I noticed the date timestamp. He'd sent the note the day before, on March 19th at 5:41 p.m., exactly when I'd sent a note to myself about the 7 Seas in the crossword puzzle. This was all certainly entertaining, but perhaps I was getting a little bit impatient, like, something's gotta give. So I closed my email, and in exasperation I typed 7 Seas Inanna into the search bar. Here's where things get really, really interesting. Here I learned that the term 7 Seas was first mentioned in a 4,300-year-old hymn to the goddess Inanna. You heard that right. And I'm scrambling to find the hymn online, and in minutes I have it in front of me. I'm reading it line by line. My eyes are peeled for the treasure that I know awaits me there. And there it is, at the bottom of the hymn, beneath the 7 Seas. The hymn ends with a reference to the radiant city of Ur-Behi. So the goddess had spoken, and 25 years later, the meaning of that encounter is still coming together. What do you think? Please share your questions and insights in the comments below. And thanks for watching.